Today on the LA Food Podcast, what do the eater layoffs mean for food media in Los Angeles? Did Bill Addison's review of Vespertine get us more or less excited to visit the 2 Michelin-star juggernaut? And what to make of Melissa Clark's underwhelming experiences at Thomas Keller's Per Se and the French Laundry? Father Saul's with us today to discuss all of the above, plus a controversy at Long Beach's Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles, a bold proclamation of the best fast food item in America, and a quote-unquote intrepid food influencer who's rating every steakhouse chain from the comfort of his own Tesla. In part 2, we're joined by Reilly Cox and Luke Reyes for the second installment of our Opening Cafe Esca series. If you missed part 1, this is our series where Luke and Reilly are bringing us along in their journey of opening an ambitious new Italian restaurant in a stunning Arts District development come March of 2025. For today's conversation, I met up with Reilly and Luke at their very much under construction restaurant space to hear about how they've been working with their designer on a design concept that presents a modern Italian dining experience able to convey warmth while also standing out amidst the sea of Italian restaurants in Los Angeles. Today's convo will focus on the concept of the design, and our next installment, coming up in a few weeks here, will center around the nitty-gritty of bringing that vision to life by way of materials, permitting, budget constraints, and more. Pretty please consider leaving us a rating or review wherever you listen to podcasts. I'm your host, Lucas Servodio, and without further ado, let's chat out. The LA Food Podcast is presented by The Lonely Oyster. Unwind at The Lonely Oyster's Echo Park Night Watch. Did you know that every night is industry night at The Lonely Oyster, dear listener? Stroll in after 10 p.m. nightly for a one-of-a-kind experience designed for the night owls and hospitality pros. Indulge in $12 handshake cocktails, expertly crafted liquid chef concoctions, delicious late-night hot bites, and chef's choice dozen oysters. More than just a place to unwind, The Lonely Oyster warmly welcomes industry professionals, providing a space where like-minded individuals can connect, relax, and enjoy the camaraderie that comes with the late-night scene. Whether you're looking to kick back after a long shift or simply enjoy the vibrant atmosphere, late night at The Lonely Oyster is the perfect rendezvous for those who appreciate good company and great food and drinks. Don't miss this nightly affair and let the good times roll at The Lonely Oyster. Welcoming back to the LA Food Podcast, a man who single-handedly tanked my fantasy football season. It's Father Saul. Father Saul, what do you have to say for yourself?
Look, the year of losing is almost over. We're almost through, baby. I actually came through fucking clutch on my fantasy team. I'm sneaking into the playoffs. I think this could be the turning of the tide. This could be my first big win of the year.
Well, I mean, doesn't the season technically end in 2025?
That's what I'm saying, man.
Right.
I told Emily before, because I was like losing a lot of games. I was like, ugh, part of the year of losing. And she was like, isn't it actually over in 2025? And I'm like, counting it for this year. It's all 2024. It'll be over soon. But now that I'm winning, yes, we're going to count it as a 2025 win if I'm able to pull it off.
Do you think you're going to automatically transition into a year of winning, or is it going to be more even keel, like you win some, you lose some?
I'm feeling a year of winning coming up. I overthought this year a little bit when we did our drafts for Top Chef and our various bets that I've lost somehow. Like, it's just unlikely that you lose all the things. I've lost all the things, but I know my mistakes. I've learned, I've reflected. Winner's face, not a thing, turns out. And we're gonna go forward and dominate next year. I can feel it.
All right. Sounds like an impossible to keep New Year's resolution on your end. Look, speaking of winners and losers, any good eats lately on your end?
You know, I've noticed that people kind of talk shit on guisados now.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I think Esparza is kind of like, is like anti or whatever. I recently ordered like a chorizo breakfast burrito. I think they do breakfast burritos now. They're labeled as new on the ordering app that I shouldn't be using, but did. Fucking amazing. I had it like 3 days in a row.
Wow.
Those breakfast burritos are going to hold me down in LA. I'm like, yeah, very happy with that.
Did you just out yourself as an ignorant taco eater to everyone?
100%, I guess. I mean, I was like, this is good. Why are we mad? This is decent.
So if I recall correctly, the like big beef between Guisados and Bill Esparza started last year, and it was sort of similar to what happened with Villa's, where, you know, they got in the comments of the 38 essential tacos list and complained about not being on it. And then Bill did one of his stories talking about how all the reasons why he's not on board with Guisados, basically. I do remember his main critique was that the tortilla was too thick and small to actually like wrap around the filling, meaning like what Bill likes to talk about is, does it taco, right? Like, does the actual like tortilla wrap around the filling and act as a vehicle effectively? And his critique is the concept is just wrong at Guisados.
I actually, that tracks. Like it is a weird, you know, like that vibe when you get a bowl of ceviche and then like 3 chips and you're like, this doesn't match. That's sometimes the experience of eating guisados, where you're like, why is this soup in a tiny this stew in a tiny tortilla and it's just falling all over my lap, right?
I've not had that same ceviche experience, but I totally know what you mean. Look, I actually took a big L with food this week. I had one of the worst meals I've had all year. It was on my noodle journey, and it was a pasta spot. I'm not going to name it, right? But it ultimately ended up being a place that I'm not actually going to include in my countdown, because I'm only including places that I would consider like epic noodle dishes, right? This purported to be one of those. Like, it was a place that had been shortlisted for a really important award this year. And so I was expecting great things. Dude, it was so bad that my wife was like, you can not include that. You can absolutely not include that. But it rose the question for me, like, what kind of responsibility do we have? Do we have the responsibility to name these places? Or to me, it always seems like a bad thing to do, right? Like, you don't want to be shitting on a small business, but in the same breath, I would feel really, really bad if somebody went out there and dined.
I can't believe you went to Funky without me, dude. That's crazy. No, I'm joking. No, I think, look, the ethos of the countdown is to celebrate. There's no kind of moral qualm with omitting rather than shitting.
No qualm with omitting rather than shitting. Put that on a t-shirt. Well, look, speaking of omitting, shitting, and everything in between, we did get a couple of quick pieces of feedback on our 101 takes, which I thought was rather interesting. A lot of people had thoughts. People did seemingly come around to the new Hall of Fame idea, which is that restaurants should be sort of able to apply when they are ready to enter the Hall of Fame. So it turns out I am onto something.
You are. I mean, it was a good take. I mean, I also just thought, Emily and I were listening to the episode in the car, and she's like, why don't they just let Hall of Fame restaurants also be on the 101?
It's a good question.
And they're just like, it's like, yeah, that seems actually pretty simple, pretty straightforward. It's a good solution.
Yeah, it's another indication that it's all fake. You know, like it's all made up. The other one take that people did not come around to was the take that Jay Gold is the Barack Obama of LA food, but not for the reason you think. It's not that they didn't agree with that characterization. People just really fucking hate Bill Addison, bro.
Oh, wow. Wait, how does that track with the Jay Gold Obama thing? Oh, because you use that take to say Bill Addison is actually an underrated critic, and like...
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that he's actually like way more forward thinking and sort of needle moving than people give him credit for. But the responses I got on that was like, no, Bill doesn't ever discover anything. He just goes to places that are already hyped, you know, is just not in the same conversation as Jay Gold. I strongly disagree with that opinion, but that's the feedback I got.
Interesting. This is, I mean, just generally an interesting conversation, because I also went back to Jay Gold's last list in 2017. And this is less about, you know, can Bill discover a spot or not? But to a point that I think you made on the podcast, I think Bill does make an effort. Jay Gold's 2017 list is actually pretty like gradient fine dining. Mm-hmm. Like the top 15, 20. It's like, it's just like a certain level. And Bill, I think, is taking some risks or not risks, but like going out of his way to mix it up a little bit in a way that I didn't realize that that's how it looked when Jay Gold did it. And Bill kind of like, you know, again, it's all fake, so he can do whatever he want. And I think it's a choice to put like a Barbacoa Ramirez like among the top 10 and so on. I'm surprised by the Bill hate. It could just be like, dude, you don't want to be the guy following Sir Alex Ferguson, right? Like you just like can't win.
He's got I was literally going to say he's got David Moyes all about him, right? Like David Moyes, the guy who comes in after Alex Ferguson's reign. I literally thought the exact same thing. But I think also people forget that, like, okay, 2017 feels relatively recent, but I don't think we actually realize how much food social media has changed since then. So like when Jonathan Gold was operating, like people are under the impression that he would just kind of like pull these finds out of his ass, right? No, it was just less visible where he was getting them from. But he had scouts on the ground who were finding places for him. Like he was also known to like scour the blogs, right? In the early aughts, mid aughts, like, you know, Bill Esparza talks about how Jonathan Gold like found Mariscos Jalisco through him, right? But like now it's just super visible. Like if Bill Addison goes to a place that people have seen on social media, right, that an influencer has gone to, they just don't give him credit at all for finding it, quote unquote.
Yeah, that's actually a great point. Like, what's the last? I mean, of any outlet, I actually already know exactly how someone would respond to this. I was like, when's the last time anyone found something and got credit for it? Bill is losing his shit hearing that, and to be fair, yeah, he might be the person who most aggressively, I think, goes out and tries to find undercovered places and small pop-up family shops and all that stuff. But I think you're correct. It's so saturated now between infatuation and Eater, which we'll talk about a bit more in a second. LA Times, food influencers, right? Like because there's such a industry around doing this now, rather than Jay Gold being like the voice and like the sourcing not being quite as easy in 2011 or 12 or 13 than it is now. Yeah, I think that probably adds to some of the phenomenon here.
Yeah. Well, look, let's get into the big topic of the day because it is heavily tied to what we're talking about, and that is food media. Vox Media, the parent company of Eater, announced earlier this week some big changes. First of all, they announced a ton of layoffs. It's being estimated that about 40 reporters were let go. They announced that Thrillist is being folded under Eater, and critically, that Eater is transitioning its city coverage into a more regional model. This means we're going to be losing Eater LA, Eater San Francisco, all of the like city-based Eaters, and it's going to become some sort of, you know, regional model that's yet to be specified, but we can sort of surmise it'll be something like Southwest, Northwest, Midwest, East Coast, etc., sort of like the James Beard Awards do. They announced, you know, some big layoffs, including critic Robert Sitzema, and the employees union released a statement expressing how blindsided they felt by the move. This part stuck out to me from the statement. It said, as always, it is the workers who bear the brunt of management's poor choices, and this close to the holidays, their callousness is especially galling. So some might look at this and think, so what? Some people lost their jobs and that sucks. But what is fundamentally going to change for me as a reader? What do you say to that?
Yeah, I mean, I hope people don't think that way. It's a little pretty cruel.
Listen, we got some callous ass listeners out there.
No, this sucks. Eater, as you've talked about, I think is some of the best boots on the ground. Forget food reporting, local news reporting in the cities they're in. I think, for example, Eater Detroit was particularly hard hit by the layoffs. And look, there still will be Eater, but I think both with the limited staff capacity, it sounds like more limited editor capacity. Like they're removing, I think, some local editors. Mm-hmm. And I think that means Eater will still do the lists, right? And I'm sure they'll still be like pretty great, right? And informative. But it's that sort of more investigative or kind of culture or culture-based storytelling and journalism that I suspect is going to be hurt here. And that sucks, man. Eater has broken important stories. Yeah. Eater has an accountability platform for the industry and bad behavior in it, and a soapbox to make people aware of it. Super important. I think this is a real bummer. And we don't know how it totally transforms. Do we know how many folks at Eater LA might have been impacted? I was trying to track that down.
We don't know yet. I mean, I don't know yet. They haven't made any of that stuff really public, right? I mean, I can surmise. Again, I don't want to do much speculating, but based on who's still writing articles at Eater, because they've continued to publish stuff on their website, you know, I haven't noticed like anybody notably absent, right? That usually writes at Eater LA. However, I don't know. Maybe they were given like, you know, a 2-week notice or something. I doubt it. Usually when layoffs happen, actually, I know that the CEO said everybody who's been let go has already like been notified. So I don't want to do any speculating on who has been let go, but that said, 40 people, it's quite a lot across an organization the size of Eater.
Yeah, that's right. Something I just don't get, like, when we've touched on like the broader kind of plight of local media and journalism as a whole, like, Eater is well read.
Yeah.
Like, how are you not making enough money on Eater? Like, Thrillist, I feel like, which got subsumed under Eater. Like, I feel like people don't engage with Thrillist as much anymore. So I kind of understood how that brand got kind of hollowed out, unfortunately. But Eater, I think, is like a legitimate, like, sure, the audience might be niche to folks who are interested in food, but it's the brand and the reputation, and I think the readership must be strong. So what is happening here that the business side of the organization is not able to monetize it?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I think about.
I would be really interested because that's something that the Guild, the Vox Union, Reporters Union, said in their statement, is that the workers are bearing the brunt of management's poor choices, but they didn't specify what those poor choices are. I would love to hear, from the inside of the belly of the beast, what they perceive as those poor choices to be. But you're absolutely right. I feel like it's got to be one of the most read news sources for food in not just Los Angeles, but the country, because of the style of reporting they do, which we're going to get into, but I think leaves a real hole in terms of LA's overall food media landscape. So yeah, I don't know. I do think that there is a gap between readership and how to actually capitalize on that readership these days.
Yeah. It's a fundamental kind of failure of the industry, I think, is to solve that problem. And to be clear, we're making an assumption that it's well read, but my sense is that it is.
Yeah.
Because I mean, literally it's pure SEO. Like when you look up LA food, Eater and the Essential 38 are the first things you're going to see. So yeah, no, it's sad news and fucking huge loss, I think. I mean, it's not gone. It's not going away. Not going away forever, but we're still going to be losing like quality journalism here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, I think that it could just be paying the price of the overall economy, right? Like, I think, like, how do these websites like Eater make their money? Like, most of it is advertising, or a big chunk of it is advertising.
Yeah.
And I think that advertisers make their advertising decisions based on conversion rates. And I think that if the ads are not converting into sales, maybe by no fault of like Eater's own, but also just because the economy is hard and people like who are going to Eater's website aren't clicking on the links as frequently because they have less disposable income. It could just be that Eater's paying the price and they didn't have a really good rainy day fund, Yeah,
and also when economic conditions are bad, companies pull back on their advertising budgets.
Yeah.
So there's just like less market out there for it. Yeah, no.
So in terms of the hole that this leaves in Los Angeles' food media landscape, so I was sort of thinking about like, okay, what is the overall landscape and what role has Eater played in it? I sort of like came to like this like, outline or sketch of LA food media as a bit of like a four-legged stool, or dare I say, a chair. You've obviously got your paper of record, the LA Times, right? They're sort of the like most storied and I would say almost like official news source. And of course they've got the Critic, the Los Angeles Times Critic, which plays a really important part in any city. And we're actually seeing it go away in a lot of cities. You could say whatever you want about Bill Addison, but we're actually pretty lucky as a city to still have a full-time critic. Secondly, on the other end of the spectrum, you've got your sort of like fun-sized, easy-to-use entertainment food media, hyper utilitarian. I kind of think of this outlet as for the people, by the people, even though a lot of people might not like me saying that because they're owned by JP Morgan Chase. And that is the Infatuation. Like, nobody goes to the Infatuation and is like, these guys are like culinary experts who know everything about the way restaurants are run, right? No, it's like people who enjoy eating, and you want to hear from those people's firsthand experiences of what you can expect when you go to somewhere. And it really is like quantity as much as quality with the Infatuation, right? Then this other sort of niche is independent food media. You've got like the LA Tacos of the world. You've got like Substacks, burgeoning Substacks like The Angel, which do like more alternative storytelling and really thread the needle between how food is connected to other elements of society, including politics and public policy. Eater filled a very specific hole in LA food media because yes, it did the utilitarian guides like the LA Times does, like the Infatuation does, but I don't think anybody was reporting hyper-local news with the regularity and the sort of depth that Eater did, right? Like the LA Times does news. It does news, but it doesn't do it to the same degree that Eater did. Like Eater was out there on these streets scouring like, the storefronts, seeing where like there were like the city notices of like liquor license applications and like digging for what is this restaurant opening? What is it going to be? It was a lot of times breaking news about restaurant closures, about bad behavior, to your point. To feel like that is going to go away, because realistically, it's not something that the LA Times is going to fill. It's not something that the LA Taco has like the bandwidth to fill, I feel. That's going to be a huge loss.
Yeah, it is going to be. The only thing I would say you're missing here, and I understand you didn't include them because they're not journalism, but I think the proliferation of food influencers, looking at you, buddy, plays an important role here. People only have so much time and attention, right? And if you are getting your information about where to eat from a free social media account that you follow and then, spend more and more of your time on Insta or whatever, that is an eyeball taken away from other and a minute of attention or whatever taken away from these other things. So I think we have to acknowledge that as well. And yeah, it's also not just the investigative reporting, right? And alongside the lists that we lose and like that boots on the ground, finding restaurants and so on. I think the Eater packages, like that speak to a trend or a cultural insight are like some of the most interesting reads you can have about food. And you're right that they do that with a regularity and with an approach that I don't think is really replicated by legacy news media.
Yeah.
I mean, LA Taco and stuff, like they will touch on those things at times, but maybe they don't have, as you said, the resources and the bandwidth to pursue it in the way Eater did. And hopefully, I mean, look, I hope it's not gone forever, right? We're still waiting to see what the fallout looks like from this. But I would assume with my thought here is that the folks at Vox probably see that lists are the most read thing, right? I'd guess the hot new and the essential 38s
100%
are the things that people click on. And they're probably like, well, and I wouldn't be surprised, if that some of the bigger long form pieces don't get as much attention because of people's, attention spans and time. And maybe it's a much smaller audience and they go, oh, wait, well, our audience wants lists, not reporting. So we'll do lists, right? I don't know that, but that would kind of be my guess.
I think you're 100% on the money there. I would be shocked to see anything other than like lists in their future. I think they'll still do some stuff, but I think it'll be like, obviously one big and great addition to LA food media in the last year plus has been SF Gate, which has expanded their news bureau with Farley Elliott and Karen Palmer to cover California more broadly. And they're telling really interesting and sort of out of the box Los Angeles and like Southern California stories. But it is different. It's different because they're not like breaking news with those stories necessarily. I think they're telling important stories, right? Like they're digging into the history of like Dantana's or like where Kamala Harris got enchiladas in Southern California and stuff, like stories that I think are fun and have a place in our food media landscape. But yeah, I think that's what we're going to lose. We are going to lose the like everyday reporting we get from Eater. I mean, I feel bad about the lists because I've noticed it too with my content that lists do the best, right? They just do. Like people gravitate towards them, and it's really hard to not like, kind of cave into that pressure of giving the people what they want, not just because it feels good to get likes and follows, but also because you feel like you want to be providing people with what they respond to the most. Like if you put out a video, like I did today about like Uyghur noodles and like not as many people watch it, I still think it's an important thing to put out, but certainly you're not incentivized to based on how the algorithm works. I don't really know how to square that circle, man, in terms of like wanting to avoid list culture and driving people to read more food journalism and better food writing and all that stuff, but it just not reaching the eyeballs you want it to reach.
Look, at some level, it just is what it is, right? Like audiences are the way they are. Like we can look ourselves in the mirror and be like, damn, like we. But this is the whole problem. We've talked about this before. Like there's a civic good provided by the kind of investigative and cultural journalism and insight that an Eater can provide, and there's a gap in willingness to pay for or engage with it that really sucks. Because that stuff is important. We like, whether it's because it results in accountability or just like, people teaching people about the history and context in which they're living in the city. like that stuff is valuable in my opinion. I mean, look, let's follow along and see what Eater LA looks like. I mean, that's going to be interesting to track over the next year. And if like, I mean, is Eater LA even going to be Eater LA? It's going to be Eater California or Eater. I mean, we don't even know what this looks like yet. So let's wait and see. But thoughts are with all the folks who've lost their jobs and yeah.
100%. And I will say Vox Media Union is collecting a fund for those impacted, which honestly is like a travesty that this needs to be done. Like that, like, you know, a company can't like take care of its employees when it lets them go. It's like a form of severance. Of course, I don't know all the details, but if you do want to help, we'll put the link in the show notes because they are collecting a fund for those impacted. I think what else can we do to help, Saul, in terms of like banging the drum for food media?
I mean, continuing to share it, right? I mean, hopefully folks do. I don't know if we can even track this, but I hope folks like click on the article links. You got to get your fucking newsletter up and running again, man. Because I think that's probably a better way to draw audiences in. But also, like I said, you gotta like be honest with yourself that. I mean, look, I don't know if this is like a 1-to-1, but you doing what you do is kind of you're like kind of competing for attention.
Yeah.
With these same folks. I mean, I think the audience that goes and looks at Insta, you know, your little video reviews is different from the one that would read a long form article. So I don't think it's necessarily one over one. But yeah, I don't know. Let's just keep boosting it up, right? Let's just keep sharing it out.
Yeah. I mean, I don't like to think of it as like a dichotomy between influencers and food media. Like I feel like they can be providing different services. I could see it if you told me if that was between influencers and the infatuation, because I feel like that's a relatively similar service. But I just feel like people should be smarter and know that they need more than just like people eating in their cars reviewing burgers. Anyways, whatever. I'll get off that soapbox. Look, let's talk about some interesting food media that happened this week, and that is actually Bill Addison reviewing Vespertine. I mean, obviously he dropped the 101 last week and then follows it up quickly with, I'd say, a pretty landmark review. The headline goes like this: LA's most polarizing restaurant returns. Is its outlandishness worth the splurge? Saul, what do you think of this piece?
Yeah, interesting. I mean, got me excited for us to go. I think January, I'll finally be able to buy you dinner. I was disheartened to read the new price point. I was like, $250 now, $395. Like $395. Jesus Christ. No, what I found interesting was this. So the way, so Bill had, I think, a more negative, perception of Vespertine in the past. I think 2017 when he had originally eaten there and spoke to that experience and how this one is a much warmer and better one. But that's the food, he said, was more pleasurable than it was then. But I think actually the review centers kind of less on the food and more the experience, right?
Yeah.
And the warmth of service and the kind of like less maybe posturing, standoffish, and maybe like vibe that he got the first time around, that paired with some, experimental failures of the food made it a really kind of negative experience to drop it then. Here, I think he's essentially saying, no, this is actually a fun time. Like, this is a good time. Not only is the food good, but like I think his experience was most colored by, he talks about the guy who runs the beverage program in front of house, essentially, right? And like the energy that person brings being an entirely different one. And now front of house staff having the freedom to be a little bit more interpersonally nice. It struck me that while, yes, he was complimentary to the food, it was those shifts over time that he seemed to be responding more to.
It's funny, you say that he found the food more enjoyable. I actually read it more as like he just found it recognizable.
Right, yeah.
Like he was actually able to detect food in these dishes, and it almost like, it read like relief, that like this time he actually could detect some sort of product and like vegetable or fish within the dishes he was being served. Yeah, I mean, I will say this sort of like is in line with the theme we've heard about Vespertine 2.0, and that is that like Chef Jordan Kahn has kind of gotten out of his head, and he's like, not doing things so cerebrally anymore, and is trying to like create a dining experience as opposed to a performance art experience. It definitely makes me more excited to go, and inversely to you, when I saw the price point, it just made me even more excited to take advantage of you.
It's gonna be a good time. Like it's exciting that it's in LA. It's a cool institution to have in the city. Yeah, and we're gonna have a blast, dude. I think it's gonna be a good time.
I have an idea. So I have these like clip-on mics, and I was thinking, what if we clipped on the mics to ourselves as we went to Vespertine and recorded like our entire experience?
I don't think that sounds like a good idea.
Bad idea, horrible idea?
A horrible idea. Let's not do that.
Yeah, I think we'd also be running afoul of like California law, because unless we told like the server they were being recorded as well, I'm pretty sure that's illegal.
Yeah. You can't do that. Also, who just wants to hear two people eating dinner? Like, that's not right.
Not just any two people, okay? Us two people, I think, you know. All right, look, final story of the day. It's another review, actually, and that is Melissa Clark of the New York Times, who is, alongside Priya Krishna, one of the interim critics at the New York Times now that Pete Wells stepped down. She went back to see if the French Laundry and Per Se of Thomas Keller fame are still, quote-unquote, worth the splurge. Here's Clark's conclusion. Both of Mr. Keller's places, like many other restaurants on the world's 50 best, seem stuck in a bubble of complacency that formed in their early years. Basically, she finds that it's not worth the splurge anymore, that it doesn't have the magic it used to have. My question for you, Saul, is it not bold as fuck to send the interim critic to go after Thomas Keller?
I don't necessarily think so. Pete Wells had panned Per Se before, right? There's like been a building on like criticizing French Laundry and Per Se is actually not out of bounds. And I thought it was like an interesting, the form of criticism was really interesting, particularly the one where they're stuck in the same cycle, like stuck in the past. And we talked about experimenting and evolving being a critical idea in the 101, right? And why restaurants rise and fall, even if they've been around for a long time. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was an interesting reflection. During her interview on The Taste, Melissa Clark, she joined our friend Matt Rodbard and kind of talked through the piece. She kind of mentioned how Thomas Keller is more present at French Laundry, and therefore it was a better experience. Another thing we touched on, right? When a chef has multiple spots, like Funky, and he's not at Mother Wolf or Felix anymore, he's spending his time there. There's a different, you can like note the difference in quality. So I thought that was interesting as well.
Favorite child syndrome. Yeah, I feel like we can start coining these terms, man. Yeah, look, the thing that I really liked about her interview with Matt was when she talked about her POV when she goes in to write one of these. Like, we've often talked, like, who are these reviews for? And she talks about how when she's writing a food review, she pictures her dad reading it, because her dad was the type of foodie that would like save up to go to meals like this. And that was like his idea of like a splurge, a good time. It's what he wanted to do with his disposable income. It seems to me like a really old school way to think about criticism, but also like kind of a really sweet one.
Yeah, it's cool. It's a good, consistent, clear perspective, right? To like, and I assume every writer has to do this. Every critic in some way has to do this and be like, who is my audience and who am I speaking to consistently as I go about my business? And for hers to be your father is an interesting, and I think probably adds to her quality, right? As a reviewer and a critic, because it's like such a personal kind of vantage point. I liked that little tidbit. That was cool.
Reading this, would you go to the French Laundry or Per Se?
I still just want to go to the French Laundry, even if the experience. If anything, maybe this makes it better because my expectations are going to be lower, right? You kind of go in being like, I don't know anymore, and then get blown away. Per Se, I could take your leave. French Laundry, we got to go. We should go.
We should. That should be one of our bets. I think it's interesting that after the Pete Wells review back in 2016, 2017, like Thomas Keller read it and kind of like came out with a statement rededicating himself to the restaurant, basically being like,
right,
hands up, hold my hands up, things have gotten out of hand. I'm going to rededicate myself to this restaurant. I wonder if he's going to do the same again now, if he's going to rededicate himself to the restaurant.
I feel like the second time around, 7 years later, he's like, whatever, fuck it. I can't impress everybody.
He's like, fuck it. I've made so much money. I don't need this shit anymore. All right. You ready for a lightning round of Chef's Kiss Big Miss?
Let's do it.
All right. The Long Beach location of Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles has been quote unquote canceled for having an inflatable doll of Donald Trump outside of its doors. Inflatable dolls of political candidates outside of your restaurant. Is that a chef's kiss or a big miss?
I don't think I want an inflatable doll of any kind outside the restaurant. Actually, no. There's probably some restaurants for whom the vibe is right. Like what's that, El Compadre or something in Echo Park? Like I could totally see an inflatable out there. What kind of inflatable would you have out there? I mean, that's Dodgers country, right?
Yeah.
Get Shohei, like blow up a Shohei outside. Yeah, that'd work.
blow up a Shohei outside. Yeah, I think in general, inflatable dolls are probably something you can leave behind. Okay, next one. The Ringer published an oral history, and you sent me this one, of their most controversial piece of all time, and that is a ranking of the best fast food items in America that placed Chick-fil-A's waffle fries at number 1. Saul, the Chick-fil-A decision was obviously a big miss. I think they even admit that this was a big miss. But was the retelling of how it happened a chef's kiss or a big miss for you?
I love reading oral histories of any kind, not just from The Ringer. Like, I love getting the behind the scenes. They're super funny. Like, it was also, by the way, just a fundamentally interesting piece, right? Because they're talking about the process that a media outlet goes through to make a list and all the considerations that go into it, and how, because this was their first one, all the shit that went wrong, like, just as an editorial exercise, and hearing from folks like Sean Fennessy and Julia Littman about the thinking behind it, how they were trying to, establish The Ringer at the time. This is purely, again, we talked about media a lot in this podcast. That insight is a lot of fun, and it's really funny. It's not as funny as, I'm just shilling for The Ringer now for no reason. They did a fantasy football draft like around the same time that was a disaster, and their oral history of that draft is one of my favorite pieces of media. It's like I like revisit it all the time. It's so funny.
Wow, I'm gonna read that now just so I have a bar for your sense of humor. Question for you: what is the number one fast food item of all time?
I think Five Guys is like low key. No, Five Guys is like good. Like, I think Five Guys is like maybe the most underrated fast food option out there, and I would just give like the Five Guys hamburger. Nothing special. I think they have like the Five Guys bacon cheeseburger or something. I don't like all that fussiness. Five Guys hamburger is just actually better than most other fast food. So that's
the number one fast food item?
I mean, I'm not gonna spend all day brainstorming here, but I would give it that. I would give it my vote.
Confession: I've actually never had Five Guys.
Wow, I'm about to blow your mind.
Yeah, consider it's an open invitation to. All right, next one. Boy Blues Kara Vorabuter, and apologies if I butchered that last name, posted an Instagram story alleging that more than 80 folks had reported getting food poisoning at the LA Times 101 event that happened when they dropped their list last week. Saul, was our decision not to go to this event a chef's kiss or a big miss?
Was it a decision that we didn't go?
Yeah, I mean there were tickets on sale, and we decided not to buy them.
There you go. This is a highly ironic and like maybe an analogy of like food media right now. You have your 101 best restaurants event, and everyone gets sick. It's a tough look. It's a tough look. Yeah, look, I think, jokes aside, Kara was making some really good points about how, like, even the top restaurants, and she did name some suspects of who people suspected. Let's just say it's some really high-end seafood restaurants. And she was saying, like, even those really high-end restaurants might not be well-versed in, like, hosting events like this, and might not have, like, the food safety chops required. And, she was in a position to speak about it because she operates Boy Blue, which is a really successful pizza pop-up, and was just saying, like, look, it's kind of like two completely different things, like food safety in a restaurant versus making sure that the food is safe at an event like this. So jokes aside, there are some lessons learned, and we hope that the LA Times learns them. Last one for you. LA-based foodie influencer How Kev Eats is doing a series where he ranks the best chain steakhouses, think Ruth's Chris, Del Frisco's, STK, etc. As he does with all of his reviews, he's doing it from his Tesla. Meaning he has like takeout boxes of like steak, lobster mac and cheese, the bread and shit, and he's eating it all within the comfort of his own Tesla. Is this chef's kiss, big miss, or just further proof that humanity is irreparably fucked? What I don't get about it, I would call this a miss, because so this is not actually reviews, this is entertainment, because you're not giving insight into what people's actual experience eating these steaks would be. No one's going to eat them. I mean, I kind of highly doubt anyone's eating their steak from their car. So it's just like a bit, it's like a, dancing monk. No, I shouldn't say that. Like it's like a, he's like dancing for his dinner a little bit, kind of literally corny, but fine. Whatever.
Yeah, no, he does say, in fairness, that he plans on going to the restaurants as well, but he's still dropping the reviews and rating before he does that, so I'm not, talk about process. I'd like to be in one of How Kev Eats process meetings.
There you go. By the way, that sounded too mean. I'm not, How Kev Eats is totally fine. But look, you're in the content game. Get creative with it, and he's apparently doing it.
All right, gauntlet thrown at How Kev Eats. To make it clear, Father Saul hates you, Kev. No. He said it here. All right, buddy, that's all we have time for today. You got a shitty up review of the week?
I'll have a quick one, and it's not me being a boyfriend. I went to in my role as a boyfriend. I went to my friend Jace's birthday, like last Saturday, and birthday party. His family's there. I get him a birthday gift. He sends me the birthday invite. Cannot be more clear. At the party, we start having a conversation about like different astrological signs. Like I'm Capricorn, Earth sign baby all day, as is his wife. And we're going back and forth. And she's like, oh, Jace is a fire sign. And I was like, oh, no way. When's his birthday? Like July, August? And she's like, this is his birthday party. Just because every time I hear fire sign, I'm just like, oh, it's summer. Summer is your birthday. And I'm literally at the party. He texted me the next day being like, hey, just if it wasn't clear from everyone singing happy birthday in both English and Spanish in front of you, it was my birthday party last night. Thanks for coming. Yeah.
Classic Saul. Yeah, that's pretty bad. I'd give that a solid 1.5 stars out of negligence.
It's no harm, no foul. It's like, if anything, I just embarrass myself, but kind of funny to be at my old college friend's birthday being like, when were you, like, when are you celebrating? What's going on?
Yeah, and it's not like, what, is today your actual birthday? No, you literally just like forgot that it was a birthday party. Yeah. Hey, Saul, how do you feel about restaurant design?
Oh, actually, I always want to do the bit where I just shit on stuff, but I'm actually super into that topic. You've talked about it before. Is it a returning guest here?
It is. Well, it is, but not the way you think. We're actually doing part 2 of our Opening Cafe Esca series.
Oh, nice.
And I got the chance to actually go to the restaurant, which right now is just like an empty space with like trenches in the ground and like lots of construction happening. But we had a conversation which we're going to break up into 2 parts. One is sort of like the concept of the design and in terms of like how that all came together. And the second part is actually executing it. So right now, after the break, you're going to be hearing about how Reilly and Luke are actually taking this idea of like an Italian restaurant and coming up with a design concept to convey what they want to convey.
I love that. Can't wait to listen to this one.
We'll be right back after the break. Not a good job by you.
Okay. I'll see you later, man.
Take care, buddy. Dear listener, I made a deal with my wife. She let me start a food podcast and eat ungodly amounts of noodles, pizza, sandwiches, and more under 2 conditions. One is that I never utter her name. The other is that I find ways to be healthy outside of my work in food. Being the fantastic partner I am, I found a few ways to up my health game. I exercise almost every day, I try to sneak in salads for lunch whenever I can, and I only ever snack on healthy foods. The macadamia nut has become an essential part of my daily routine with the best omega-6 to 3 ratios in the nut game, 8 times better than pistachios and 20 times better than cashews. At houseofmacadamias.com, they've got a bunch of different macadamia products that you can enjoy, like savory and sweet snack packs and chocolate-covered snack bars. One of the problems with macadamias I've found is that they can be expensive, but I'm solving this for you, dear listener, because as of today, all you've got to do is head to houseofmacadamias.com and use code LAFOOD to get a 10% discount on a healthy snack that also happens to be delicious. So what are you waiting for? Head to www.houseofmacadamias.com/discount/LAFood and go nuts. All right, welcome back to the LA Food Podcast. It is Reilly Cox, Luke Reyes. How you guys doing today?
Doing great.
Pretty good.
Happy to be here.
Thank you for having us again.
So, dear listener, you can't see this. Well, you will on social media, but not on the pod. But we are actually inside what is going to be Cafe Esca, and it feels like, you know, it's coming together.
Feels dusty, yeah.
Yeah. Bare bones, but it's getting there.
Reilly, could you describe sort of what the space looks and feels like right now in its current iteration?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like dust coated. There's holes in the ground for plumbing and inspections, framing up, and like piles of dirt everywhere. But you see where the restaurant,
How it's going to become. You see, it's like bones.
Yeah.
so that's a nice thing because now you can start envisioning it, I think, versus having tape on the ground as it was. So having like actual structure up is good.
So, yeah, that's where we're at right now.
Yeah, I think it's like we're like right at the place before we can put the walls up and it's a real thing. So there's still like dirt and skeleton and, you know, the frame, but we're actually surprisingly really fucking close to this thing being like, oh, now we just need equipment and we open the doors.
We're going to get to all that. One of the things that struck me as I was walking in here for the first time is actually like how beautiful the development is. Like you guys, really sold it when we last spoke as this like very European, Italian, Mediterranean feeling thing. And it does feel like somebody just plucked something out of, Sicily meets Greece and just dropped it in the arts district.
Yeah, it's a vibe for like, it's definitely very different for what's around in the arts district, which I think was what attracted us to it. There's a courtyard that's going to be a patio seating. There's a lot of really beautiful tenants here, and just the building itself. Like it's the kind of place where you could imagine 40 people outside with glasses of wine, and it could be anywhere in the world. A beachside place in Greece or Italy, like you're saying. It's definitely special.
Yeah, and I think when we did the event, the block party, a couple of weeks ago, and we have an event coming up on Thursday, it felt so nice to see the place kind of like alive and booming and having people fill in it, because I think we've seen it as like just kind of the tenants and some other people exploring it, and so I think once the restaurant feels in it, it will really kind of start to give the heartbeat of the place.
It's been interesting to see like what this building was a year ago when we initially saw it and developed like, oh, is it something we want to do? And like one by one you see the community, like the building, people who live around here, people who work around here, discovering it, and the same thing. They're like, oh shit, I didn't even know this existed. And it's, I think once like the Esca goes live and there's people like, living and breathing here, it's really going to be awesome.
Yeah.
Because it's already got businesses in here. Like there's like
there's a
Flamingo
few.
Estate, right? Other things. But like Esca is going to be the thing that's facing out onto the street. So that is kind of going to be the signal to everybody walking by, like,
That's it. Yeah.
hey, we're alive, we're
Yeah,
here.
yeah,
This
yeah.
place is.
And concierge is already doing the work of like, being in the like morning and day, which is like such a nice, they're so nice to have. But I think once like, we can get the courtyard filled out and like there's like warm food to eat in this space, I think it'll really start to like,
Come together.
Yeah.
So we're here today to talk about design. As we've just described, the space is still very much being constructed, but the design has already, happened. We're going to sort of split this up into two parts. First is sort of the coming up with the concept of the design, and then secondly is actually taking that concept and making it a reality. How do you actually execute on that? So I wanted to first talk about the inspiration for the design. I understand that there were quite a few things that went into it, but I understand there were perhaps some travels that happened.
From the initial, like, what do we want to do? Like, okay, this is the concept, right? We love the space. Like, if you can see, like, we haven't put finished the roof. Like, the space that we found it felt like we could do this thing here. And as I started developing, like, okay, it's going to be this Italian restaurant that, based on time we spent, Tuscany and Italy and previous work things, and how do I take that and make that kind of mesh here? So kind of just started looking at like Milan, restaurants that I've been to, and like the design there, and working with Dean Levin, who's our partner and the designer here, just building a Rolodex for like the first 2 months. It's like, what are the things we love, right? Like, okay, we want a place that's going to be, focusing on what Dean does and make it beautiful and special, but also we want a place that we can live in it, you can spend 6 hours there and that feel comfortable. So all of those things have kind of inspired, and it's fluid. We're still, as like last week we were changing what the bar setup is, because like, oh, maybe we want to have this, but it's been a process.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of choices. I mean, I think Dean could speak more about it, but I think there's a lot of choices towards warmth. And like, I think the binary of like warmth and cold within aspects of like metal and cherry and then red travertine. It's like, there are these design choices that he's making that I think lean into something that feels like there's a bit of patina on it, or there's like material that feels very real, and he's very good at sourcing that and making it kind of come together in a very fluid picture.
Yeah, and also like the materials itself, like there are elements that are designed, right? Like we have, not to give too much away, but there's like some green mohair, like horsehair elements to some of the stuff in here that, as I feel like, okay, that's a strong choice, but it's when you see it in like kind of the big picture with all of the other elements tied in, it really works. But also that's like, okay, it can't be a whole couldn't it be too design heavy? Like, because I didn't want it to be a place that is in 5 years people are like, oh shit, that was that looks like the Tulum restaurant, or that looks, I don't want to be too of the moment while still being, wow, this is, special, and having some of the design trends that are occurring on, whatever. So I think balancing that with like we were saying, like the warmth, the marble, and also having crazy, green mohair.
Yeah. And I think that's what Dean does so well, is that it's a relationship of material and like using material that's lasting versus like leaning into like trends that feel like current, and
Green tile and things like that.
Yeah. And there are definitely, like, Dean has his, like, things that are his markers, right? And it's like, okay, that you can tell that he a specific little thing from like a lot of metal work between all of his projects that he's done. So having some of that stuff in here, which I think is definitely it's good, and it's like very beautiful, and balancing that whole those aspects with a place that could look like an Italian restaurant that's here in 30 years and becomes part of everything that builds around it.
Yeah. So, question for you in terms of like what comes first, like the concept or the actual space? Meaning, like when you walked in here and you saw the space and its constraints and opportunities, did you already sort of come in and try like feel like, okay, I know what I want to do here, or did you let that guide you?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely had no design idea coming in here. I basically saw two spaces on this property, and one of them is next door. It's actually half the size of this, and that was originally, I'm like, okay, this is what we're gonna do. The whole goal was we're not gonna put any cooking equipment. So I was like, okay, that to me is exciting, right? How do I make in a modern Italian restaurant? We knew we wanted to do a wine bar Italian, but with no hot food, right? So like crudos, vegetable focused stuff, like salads. And when we eventually switched to here, it was a whole different thing, So it's been interesting.
What ultimately pushed you to choose this one over that one?
So honestly, and it's actually fucking crazy. Like when I saw this space had originally was supposed to be another very popular restaurant, but during COVID they had the space leased and they pulled out because obviously downtown got pretty affected. So they had a liquor license already tied into the building, but none of this framing was in here. So this space was like 30,000 square feet or something like that. Whatever, it's like 2,000, whatever. It was big, 4 times the size of the other space, no walls and dividers. And I was like, well, could we just put up walls in here and get the liquor license? And also there's a giant skylight in here, and have that be an element that kind of hovers over the space. Yeah. And we're like, yeah, possibly that's a thing. And Dean, our designer, came in here. He's like, yeah, this is a much better, much warmer space. And then now through design, we covered all those elements up. But those factors, obviously having a liquor permit kind of tied in here that we could maybe maneuver into worked. Yeah. And also building a full restaurant, and the difference between that and a place that, to me, would like to be able to serve wine and not have to put cooking equipment in the previous restaurant idea, was definitely like a more financially like driven idea for the design. But is that a place that is going to live here for 10 years? It might work like, okay, a wine bar and little snacks, but I wanted to do what is a place that's a hub, because this property is like booming with, there's a great VC firm here, there's Departamento, which is like the best men's clothing store in the country. So there are people here, and there's not really a place where people can live, and that this needed a full restaurant experience.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you talk about Dean, the designer, right? Just to give folks an idea of like who Dean is and what his other work has done. You mentioned he's known for like metal work in his properties. For people who aren't as well versed in who the designers of restaurants are, what are some of his other things that he's worked on?
Well, he worked on Aquila, which is the new store. What's that property called? On Sunset, right by Dayglow. What was it? Empty.
Next to like a night market stall.
Night market, yeah. Which is a sunglasses store that has this like insane light fixture in it. I think he does really well with like statement light pieces that feel very like warm and give this glow. And then he works with aluminum a lot as well. And so there's Aquila. There's he's done some like private housing that's really houses that are really beautiful.
He actually designed like I was mentioning Departamento, which is actually here at the Signal property, and we have mutual friends, and that is like the most beautiful thing like store I've seen in a long time. Like seeing there's like little elements, and you walk around this thing, and what Dean did there with like you're saying metalwork. There's like a shaping wave of like I think it's that aluminum or yeah. He's a friend, but also I'm very inspired by watching like what he does as he's developed into the this design stuff. Yeah.
And I think with Departamento, and maybe post this, you can go and take a stroll in there. But there's these like notches that feel so independent of when you're walking through the space. It feels like instantly you're in like a new moment. There was like the old Japanese wood room, which is this crazy old Japanese wood that like it looks like a dream closet that has a different tone of lighting, and then you walk out and then you're in like the wave metal that separates the store into these two different sections, and it's a really, really beautiful design.
I was just laughing, thinking like imagining Dean listening to us describe his work. He's like it's literally none of that. He's like, actually, you're so far off. But I think he has a very broad, he has very, like I was saying, specific elements that are hallmarks of the stuff he designs, but also he's been incredibly flexible. And this is the first. He's now doing a few more, but this is the first big restaurant project he's doing. And he's also a partner here, so he's been very flexible and like, okay, let's go wild. Like the initial renderings of this place, so I was like, Dean, let's make it a Dean place. We want it to be design forward, use everything you're building, and like make it, we're in the arts district next to Hauser and Worth, let's make it an artist place. And the first version of that was like fucking mental, I was like, okay, maybe not so, it was very design heavy. And then it's like, okay, we've been able to work together and be like, okay, what are those, how do we like make it very designed and very Dean, very, different than all of anything else in Los Angeles. Yeah. Wanted to be a place where people who are into design are like, I gotta go see that place. Yeah. But also people who are into noodles are like, I just want to go and have a glass of wine and sit and eat a bowl of pasta and not be in a fucking spaceship.
Speaking my language, although I would eat noodles anywhere, including a spaceship. Yeah. Now, so it sounds like now Dean's got a couple more restaurants under his belt or in the process. But what has it been like for you guys working with a designer who maybe hasn't done restaurants before? Like what is that? Because I understand that that's a different beast than other places to design.
Well, I think it intersects form and function, and I think he's somebody who can be very sensitive and also is a diner who likes to go out to a restaurant. And I think the tenets that he's been as like somebody who's been like served and experienced a place and been a part of hospitality or a restaurant, I think he understands the small tenets of design that I think has like been impactful for him, and that's kind of then being copied over. But then I think there's also conversations that you and I have that are like, okay, this is a very practical thing. This is like, well, what are we doing with the sight line of where the tables are at? Are like, will the tables hold enough plates? Mm-hmm. And so.
I think like, as like Reilly's talking about, having worked actually in a busy restaurant in service, things that aren't going to flow, right? So from a designer standpoint, like Dean would be like, oh, there's this one break, like I have a vision that I want it to be all symmetrical where every line, and we'll put just one door. And I'm like, well, how do you get into the kitchen and out of the kitchen with one door? It's like, oh, fuck, yeah, that makes sense, right? Mm-hmm. So it's been obviously a collaborative effort between the three of us and our contractor, who's phenomenal as well, who has restaurant experience of, our restaurant needs to be a restaurant, It needs to be able to function as like this place. People need to get in the kitchen, get out. People need to get in and out of the bar. It needs to be function first, not design first. And that's obviously, especially for like a capital D design person, is like, I can't wrap my head around that. So you slowly get, to a point of like, okay, and it's about compromise, right? Like, okay, I know we want to do this beautiful whatever piece of, whatever design thing, but how do we do that and make sure that it works, right? Yeah. Like we have a big raw bar, and there's again, without giving too much stuff away, there's a very long piece of equipment that's it's like a well, but it's going to have elements to it that like have wine in it and seafood and blah blah blah, but that needs to drain and also needs a sculptural. But at the end of the day, at 11 o'clock on a Friday night, a guy needs to be fucking able to bang it out there, right? So figuring out how to make all of that work as like beauty and like it's a restaurant that can get beat to shit.
Yeah. That's hilarious. A place that, because I feel like, I don't know, if I was designing something, the last thing I would want for it is to be beat to shit, to use your words. You know, like I would want it to just.
I mean, we always say restaurants take abuse. You know, it's like people are coming in and they're drinking. It's like they become lived in.
Yeah. Well, by design, right?
Yeah.
By both the people who work in it and the people who dine in them too. So, you know, you're designing, you're building a restaurant that is really clearly forward thinking in terms of design. But you're also building an Italian restaurant, right? What does it mean? Like, how do you convey Italian with design? Without it being Olive Garden, of course.
I mean, that's a big question to ask yourself. Like, what is the hallmarks of an Italian restaurant? Was like, there's East Coast Italian food. There's the things that read to me of like, okay, I'm not Italian. I'm Puerto Rican, but I've worked in these restaurants and I know these, and I think it's very hard to come in as like not an Italian chef owner, but like these are references of things that like were special trips. I've been to like, again, Milan and Rome and these restaurants that like have shaped my culinary career, and kind of building all of that stuff to like, okay, this is a hybrid of like what does those experience and the places I've worked in, and me as this is my home, right? This is hopefully a reflection of me where people come in and like feel there's little elements of myself and now Rye and Dean. And so it's been interesting kind of referencing, looking at Italian restaurants throughout the world and kind of putting that stuff together without making, like you said, too on the nose and having like, a neon sign that says like "Mamma Mia" or when you hear your family, which was my first idea for design here.
That would be a great ironic design twist to have a neon sign that says "When you hear your family." Okay, so look, to the uninitiated, when I think Italian, right? Okay, and I'm obviously being a little facetious here because I know that in Italy we have all kinds of different restaurants, but certainly in America, one of the representations are the red checker tablecloths. You have sort of like things that make it feel like ancient. Somehow like
like mob pictures on the wall. Yeah,
mob pictures. Yeah, if you're
bottles of Chianti and baskets.
Bottles of Chianti. I'm assuming we're not going to be
getting. It's not Reyes.
Yeah, I'm assuming we're not going to be getting a ton of that here.
No, it's definitely. I mean, listen, in a perfect world, that would just be Reyes too, But I think this is definitely more of like the Milan and again marble and wood. I don't want to. It's not a trattoria.
Yeah.
Which is a very specific type of design, and it's also like I want it to be warm and like a place that people can hang out with and again live in. But I think cost has been a lot of driven a lot of decisions. So like how do we use some of those marble elements of the special places we've seen in Milan, like Trattoria de Colombia, and also be able to not make a $3 million fucking project. You know?
I guess I was also saying, I mean, there's some moments of design that will be these like odes to an Italian restaurant. And the question of what is an Italian restaurant feels like difficult to answer, because then there's also like the Italian American restaurant, which also feels like a very particular thing. And I think, I don't know if this entirely has an identity, but I think within the way the menu will be built out and the way the beverage will play a line in it, that will also kind of start to like be a part of that picture and answer that question. So like, having a Fritto Misto and a good vermouth and Amaro selection and aperitivos and like, warm material meets like I think something that I've always enjoyed about eating food in Italy and have gained like so much insight from is like the progression of a meal, the way that like there are these like moments that feel it's like you have your pasta course, you have your meat course, you have your aperitivo moment, you have your bottle of frizzante, you're eating Fritto Misto and crudo and whatever it may be, and kind of playing within that. So I think there's conversations of design, but then also conversations of design that will fit within what that progression looks like.
Yeah.
Table size, coursing, yada, 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 that will also start to like fill out that picture that is also like so important to the conversations of design that we're having right now.
Yeah, I think like those elements of the menu and of like the beverage menu, the food and stuff, kind of touch into the design here, because there's like okay, we want a little cocktail lounge, right? So how do we make it within this space to still fit within the overall theme and energy, but have its own vibe, right? So we okay, let's design these little tables that can pop in and out, and also we're gonna put a little window that kind of drops out to eventually the front, which we're making a little alfresco area that we can hand out. We're gonna do a glass of wine and little aperitivo stuff out there, and have it be its own moment. But then also the raw bar, a 30-seat raw bar, that its own very specific moment where like when you're sitting there, you're having a one-on-one experience with a cook or someone serving you wine. But then how do we also give a table where you can sit like 12 people and just have a 3-hour dinner?
Yeah.
And then a courtyard. So there's within this whole project, there's also very specific, little elements to it that are, you can have 10 different versions of an experience here and 10 different times you visit.
Yeah, that's cool. And I feel like in a space this big that you're envisioning to be this sort of like utilitarian too, to really be part of the neighborhood, I feel like that's essential. What I love about what you guys are describing too is I feel like we're at a point with Italian food and Italian restaurants in Los Angeles where we've got to a place where they sort of are like hyper regional. You know what I mean? Like you have a place like Capri Club, which feels like Southern Italy, it feels like you're getting a cocktail in the streets of Sicily somewhere, right? But then you've got Etra and Melrose Hill, which is a bit more modern. Feels like you could be somewhere in Milan or Emilia Romagna or somewhere like that, right? I feel like this is sort of continuing that trend of like, hey, Italian means lots of different things, and this is how we are conveying it, and it's more than design, it's sort of the holistic experience, but the design too, I think, adds an interesting dimension to that conversation. So
Absolutely.
Yeah, I completely agree. And that's such a sensitive thing, right? Where you're like, if you are too referential and someone's like, well, that's not how it looks or how it's served there. And it's like, okay, well, we're not trying to be literal. Yeah. This is just our interpretation of it without being, like you said, like a Capri Club is like, okay, I could sit here and it's like I was transported to that place, which is beautiful and great. And like, we want to give all that thing in that version of design and experience too, but when you're sometimes too on the nose, people are like very easy to pick at things, and it's a fine line to walk.
Oh, it's a dangerous game too, because not only can you like fail right at trying to transport somebody somewhere and it not feel authentic, but there's also like some places that have tried to really lean into like, hey, let's make this feel like, I don't know, I'm going to pull out an example, Rome, right? And it ends up feeling very Las Vegas, and
like
I feel like
Disney World,
Disney World, exactly.
For sure. Epcot, yeah, 100%, yeah.
So what, like material wise, like when you talk about this, like what are we talking about? Like we reference marble, but are there other things that?
Marble, cherry wood. I think like, again, what does the hallmarks of like this version of our bastardized, experiential Italian LA restaurant, what are those things? And we've kind of taken like some steel, so that's like, okay, this is going to be a little stark, a little brutalist in certain areas, but also functional in the way that like people are going to, when they sit at the raw bar, they're going to be kicking the walls. That's just in and out drinking. When the tables go in, they're going to be slamming against that. So do we want to do the whole thing as marble? No, but we can have that balance of like some really beautiful, dark red marble, but also a little strip of stark steel to balance that on top of some like, bull-nosed, beautiful cherry wood edges. So there's little fine details that like, kind of bring all of these cool materials together.
So we talked a little bit about the sort of geographic like thing you're trying to evoke, but you're also, from our last conversation, I remember really looking to evoke a feeling when people come in here. First of all, what is that feeling that you like in your like ideal mind? You're like, I want them to come in here and feel like this is what I want them to feel. And B, how do you use design, or how have you talked about using design to actually achieve that?
I feel like, okay, in using a one word answer, I think it's like warmth. I think like you walk into a restaurant and it's like buzzing with bodies that have temperature, and then warm materials that have cool tones. And so I think that's like the red travertine, the cherry wood that has like this beautiful red in it, both items of them. And I think that would be the thing that I want people to feel, warmth of like service and food, and kind of comfortable to use it, and comfort of like chairs, not like the ones that we're sitting in currently, but the ones that people will be sitting in the restaurant. And so I think that would be my answer in like a shortened version.
I think I completely agree. I think like we want the restaurant, the design, the space to be an all-day restaurant that kind of throughout the day serves different little functions. Like you come here at noon, for a quick lunch, you sit out on the patio, courtyard, and have, crudo, salad, a glass of wine, and then you come here at 3 p.m. as the sun is setting, and have an aperitivo and some olives, and then you come here at 6 and have a full dinner. And through that, each of those little moments, the place warms up and changes, and there's like, we dim the lights, and there's music goes up, and so I think I want it to be a fluid space where like it can be a place where at 1 o'clock it's not like, this is cold, right? Or like I'm eating in a dark steakhouse or whatever, and no, you come here at 1, it's beautiful, and there's lots of natural light, but also you come here at 11, you could sit here and have a sexy date.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the LA Food Podcast. Thanks to Luke Rey and Reilly Cox for joining us. And that was just part 1 of that conversation. We'll be following up with part 2 on bringing that design concept to life in just a few weeks here, so make sure to check in back for that. Next week, we're going to be back with Nancy and Bits from Compliments to the Chef for our 2024 LA Food Pod holiday party. Do not miss that. In part 2, we're also going to be talking to Mark Rose and Med Abus, the owners of Genghis Khan on Fairfax, as they gear up for their Super Bowl, aka Christmas Day, to hear about how they do that. And speaking of the holidays, if you're looking to get us a present, please go to wherever you listen to podcasts, leave us a rating, a review. Seriously, all that stuff really helps us make our way up the charts on Spotify and Apple. If you're looking for me before we drop our next episode, you can find me on Instagram, TikTok, Threads, YouTube, and our website, The LA Countdown. That's TheLaCountdown. And you can also find us on Instagram at LA Food Pod. That's LAFOODPOD.